So all these pancakes stack upon each other and create fur. Now, this can be procedurally generated without even passing almost anything to the shader, because the shader already has a concept of direction. All we need to do, and it already does do, so when you pass a triangle primitive to the shader, it already has knowledge of the normal of that triangle, going out of the page. So here, it takes the normal, it finds out how far away it's gone on the normal direction, and it attributes the size to each blade, each cut of the blade of grass, or the fur that you're dealing with. And then it stacks these on top of each other. Now, typically, you would want to have about 50 at least pancakes at minimum. Should really go better mouse. At least 50. Should get a lot more. You should be able to get at least 100. But mind you, every single layer is going to slow down your computer a little bit more, depending on how you're using this. And I'll cover topics of optimization later. And as soon as you do this, as soon as you attach a shader and put it to the rendering engine, voila! You have a nice blades of grass. You have this on here dynamically proportioned to your scene. And that's awesome. We love that. Now I'm going to touch a bit on choosing the primitive. In the hardware, in the OpenGL pipeline anyway, I'm used to dealing with OpenGL here, and most people will be using OpenGL. Everything in the hardware is decomposed to triangles. If you pass it a quadrilateral, then it will automatically split it and pass 2 triangles to the shaders, or to the texturing, or to the rendering engine. The whole pipeline just gets 2 triangles. If you do anything more complex, such as a 5th order polygon, it gets decomposed again into triangles. Now, I'm not sure the exact formula or equation set used to decompose it, but this is one such method of decomposition. Decomposes it and creates 5 triangles out of this pentagon, I guess you could call it. And it passes all those across, and you can see as you go further and further up, it requires more and more slices, and it gets really annoyed when you pass it things that aren't exactly nice to draw. And in fact, I'm not sure exactly how to pass anything other than triangles and quadrilaterals myself, because it's the only thing you'll ever really be dealing with. But if you can pre-split these quadrilaterals into triangles before you even pass it, so instead of using GL quads, you use GL trigs. Instead of the hardware having to split it every single time you pass it a quadrilateral, which I guess isn't that much work, but it's every single frame, and you can do that at the start and avoid it from doing that every single frame. It's a little bit better. There are some decisions that go into that, whether or not you want to decompose your quadrilaterals into triangles. There are some things to bear in mind, but generally speaking, you want to decompose them. You don't want to pass that. Now, because of the implications I discussed earlier about volume rendering and how it works, you need to keep in mind that all volume rendering should be done in batches. That means that if all of these are to be textured using a grass fur, then they should all be done at the same time sequentially. So that one, then 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 that one. They shouldn't be done, do this one, then go off and render this object over here, and then go back and do this one. They should be all done at the same time, for obvious reasons, which, okay, maybe not obvious if you haven't dealt too heavily with OpenGL. If you've dealt with OpenGL, then it's pretty obvious. You don't want to switch textures or shaders frequently. In fact, you never want to switch back to the same texture if you can avoid it. And usually you can avoid it if you do things right in the pipeline. And this actually gives an interesting design constraint or design proposition, that you want to create a class volume rendering or a rendering engine that doesn't accept one quadrilateral or one primitive. It accepts a list of primitives to do the fur on, and then accepts the shader, which draws the fur. And then knowing that, it can go and do all this decomposition and shader allocation for you. Now, we have to remember that this pancake solution works in this way if all the normals are the same. So if this is grid aligned, which is obviously not here, this is grid aligned right here. So we can draw a grid through here and it's all nice and grid aligned. Oops. Nice and grid aligned, I said. And that makes the normals very easy because there's only one normal. It's that normal. We need normals, and we got normals from this triangle up here. But in here, the normals aren't exactly the same. And I'm just going to clear this. And we need to calculate those normals if they're not already pre-generated or in the engine. And there's something to keep in mind is that all primitives usually have 3 different normals, and it's not really what you would expect. So I'm gonna draw a quadrilateral here. That's the surface that we're going to be putting the fur on, and then I'm going to draw its kind of surroundings. So I'm going to draw a couple more quadrilaterals around it, and you can see that this is raised away from the scene, or down below the scene. I'm going to say it's raised, and that all this will go in different directions because with smoothing, if you want to turn this into a nice smooth curved surfaces, which a lot of modelers like to do now, they turn smoothing on, and all of these points here, instead of the shape or primitive having its own normal, which is just, you know, one simple normal here, it instead has 4 different normals. Right? So it has a normal here for that vertex, and a normal here for that vertex, and one here for that vertex, and one here for that vertex. But that's not the whole story, because we'll notice that that vertex isn't unique to this quadrilateral. That vertex is actually shared by this one, this quadrilateral, and this quadrilateral here. So it doesn't represent this one. It actually represents a whole lot of points. So it's the average of these, this normal here is the average of these 3 quadrilaterals. And so its normal is actually going to be a bit out there. This normal will be respectively out there, this normal will be out there, and this normal will be up here a bit. Now we can do the same thing as before, and we can start taking slices of this. So we just connect the dots, basically, connect the arrows, and we get a couple of pancake slices out of those. And this will be our volume that we render, and it will accept this fine. And this one will perfectly match into this one because it's got the same normals, and everything will draw quite nicely. This is called a normal extension. Well, it's what I named normal extension. It doesn't actually have a name. Well, not yet. And that's just how you use smoothing, normals that have been smoothed. Alright. Well, that's pretty much all there is on drawing a volume rendering. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have learnt something, hopefully.